and proposed housing and homelessness agenda for the Council for the next 4 years. The rationale for developing a new housing strategy comes from the changing policy picture at national level in relation to housing, a picture that has changed greatly since Breckland Council last adopted its current housing and homelessness strategies. The officers in attendance today will talk the committee through the detail of these changes, but in summary the changes include the continued reform of the welfare benefit system, a matter which is of relevance to our homelessness agenda, the introduction of new affordable housing tenures such as starter homes and changes to government investment priorities, matters of relevance to our work to support the growth of new affordable housing, and a renewed government focus on improving health through improved housing, an agenda in which Breckland has a clear role. The strategy focuses on 3 key priority areas: preventing homelessness. It sets out steps that we will take to prevent and mitigate homelessness across the lifespan of the strategy, including both strategic and operational matters. Improving health. The strategy sets out a suite of actions and activities that is proposed the Council focuses on in order to improve health outcomes by improving the quality and suitability of existing housing, and it will support housing growth. The strategy sets out the positive case in favour of the need for additional market and affordable housing across Breckland, setting the tone for the tone and direction of housing policies within the emerging local plan. Under each policy area, a series of key areas to focus on, each supported by a suite of proposed activities and actions. The officers in attendance will talk Scrutiny through the detail of what the strategy proposes. This draft strategy is being presented to Scrutiny today in order to enable members to contribute to the development of the draft strategy, which will then be made available for a period of public consultation with key partners and the general public. A final version of the strategy will then be presented to Scrutiny again early in the new year. I will take any questions that you wanted to pass on to Charles and discuss them with him. I may not be able to give you a clear idea of the answer, but I have sat through a complete review of this policy, and obviously any technical questions Matthew and or Ross would be pleased to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banbridge, and I'd reiterate that obviously as the executive member's not here, we can't question him, but should you have questions, and Mr. Banbridge hasn't done his homework well enough.
Correct.
And we will obviously put them out to Mr. Carter.
Sorry, I did know I was doing this yesterday afternoon.
No, I'm well aware that you've been put in a situation where
Thank
you're
you.
having to deal with something that isn't your area.
Yeah.
So, who would like to present this?
Thank you, Councillor Banbridge, for that introduction. For those of you who don't... Am I on? Yeah, good. For those of you who don't...
In front of your mouth, actually.
Many members could learn that too, but I'm slightly harder to learn.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Banbridge, for that introduction for the strategy. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matthew Hogan. I'm our Shared Strategic Housing Manager. And what I'd like to do is follow on from Gordon's introduction to set some of the national policy context, which is changing or causing the authority to reconsider and revise its housing and homelessness strategy, and talk through a little bit more detail around the content of the document as well, and then talk about the consultation process that we're looking to go through post your inputs and consideration of the document today. Then myself and Ross Bangs, our housing manager who deals with the operational services, will be able to assist with any questions that you may have. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. There's a huge amount changing, as you've heard from our previous presentations, in the housing agenda across the UK. Since we last adopted our homelessness strategy and our existing housing strategy, there's been a significant shift in national government policy in relation to housing, and that's specifically since we had the general election in May 2015. There's some key themes that are emerging through government policy that I just want to talk you through and explain some of the things that are feeding into those key themes. So the government talks about having an ambition to significantly boost the supply of new housing. The government talks about a housing revolution and an ambition to deliver 1 million homes by 2020, caused by a dramatic shift, as they term it, in housing policy. There's reforms taking place in the planning system, which are designed to assist in the process of bringing forward brownfield land for development. There's reforms taking place to try and support this contribution to supply that small and medium-sized developers can make to housing supply, so we're less reliant on the big PLC house builders. This includes some changes to the affordable housing contributions that local authorities can seek on smaller sites. There are some reforms proposed to try and increase the level of customer self-built housing across the UK with an ambition to mirror the levels that are experienced in the continent. And there's a shift in role that many local authorities are playing in driving housing growth, so more and more are getting involved in directly investing in new housing themselves. There's also a strong policy focus on increasing access to home ownership as well. So we've heard about the government's plans to extend the right to buy scheme to housing association tenants, so this will mean they'll have the right to purchase their home at a discount in the same way that a local authority tenant can. There's been a shift in government investment priorities away from low-cost rented housing and into forms of affordable housing that facilitate low-cost home ownership. So there's a great deal of money out there for products such as shared ownership, the starter homes product, and a new product called Rent to Buy. But we're in a period of time when there isn't any government funding available to fund low-cost rented housing, the traditional social housing that we're used to seeing delivered. The government's introduced a new affordable housing product called the Starter Home. You may have heard about this in the press. And these will be sold at 80% of open market value to first-time buyers under the age of 40. And after that, often is lived in that property for a period of 5 years, they'll then be in a position to purchase that home for 100% of the value. So they'll effectively take the capital uplift in the value of that property. And the government's also proposing to introduce a requirement for 20% of all homes on all new developments to be starter homes. So as at the moment, when Breckland Council approves a planning application for 100 homes, and we have an affordable housing policy requirement of 40% of those homes to be affordable, going forward it's likely that 20 of those 40 homes will become starter homes as opposed to the low-cost rented housing and shared ownership housing that we're used to seeing delivered. So that's a significant shift that will impact on policy locally. There's a growing policy ambition to try and better integrate health, social care and housing services, specifically in looking at how housing teams work with the health service and the social services to better adaptations to people's homes. And we'll talk about that within the strategy. The government talks about an ambition to improve the professionalism of the private rented sector. So they've introduced some measures to try and root out rogue landlords, to provide tenants with greater consumer protection, and also provide tenants with greater protection around things such as retaliatory evictions. We've heard a lot already this afternoon about the government's focus on reforming the welfare benefit system, with the twin aims of encouraging the uptake of employment and reducing the cost of the welfare benefit system. Key measures include the lowering of the benefit cap. So at the moment there's a cap on the amount of benefit that any one family can claim in a 12-month period. That's £26,000. That would be reduced down to £20,000. In Breckland, the £26,000 cap didn't have too much of a local impact, but when we take it down to £20,000, it will start to have more of an impact locally. And there's a range of other reforms of housing benefits. So there's an ambition to cap the entitlements, the housing benefit entitlement of those living in the social rented sector to the same levels that the tenant in the private rented sector will obtain, which we understand will have an impact on those aged under 35 years of age as well. And then obviously you have universal credit, which is obviously the amalgamation of 6 benefits into one. Those benefits will be paid directly to the tenants on a monthly basis as opposed to a weekly or fortnightly basis, and that tenant will have a personal responsibility to pay that money over to their landlord to ensure that their rent is paid, which obviously requires us to work with housing associations to ensure that that happens, because if it doesn't, that may drive homelessness. And finally, there's an emerging call for local authorities to do more to support homeless households. So there's recently been a select committee review into homelessness, and from the back of that there's been some recommendations which have emerged into a homelessness reduction bill, which is gathering pace in Parliament. And if that bill becomes law, it will extend statutory duties that local authorities have to accommodate homeless households. So at the moment we only have a statutory duty to accommodate those who are deemed to be the most vulnerable by the most vulnerable, but there's scope in this bill for that to be extended to any homeless household. So obviously that will have an impact on the local authority as well. Thank you very much. So we pulled together a draft strategy to present to you today. It's been developed through a number of mechanisms. We've completed a policy review, so we've looked at a lot of what I've just talked you through to try and understand how that's going to impact the situation locally and what we need to prepare for. We've completed a local evidence review, looking at some of the key statistics that we have around the housing market, housing demand, housing supply, specifically around some of the causes of homelessness. We've had some workshops with external partners, so we had a workshop looking at homelessness and the challenges lying ahead, and the challenges around health and housing as well. And I've also had discussions with industry bodies such as the Federation of Master Builders, and there's some actions within this document which have been directly fed into the strategy from our conversations with the Federation of Master Builders around how we can help small and medium-sized developers make a contribution to housing supply. Thank you. So, in terms of what the strategy says, it's structured around 3 sections. Ross and I have tried to create a document which is as accessible as we can possibly make it, so that the reader understands our ambitions and our priorities around housing. We were keen to try and make a document that someone can read and understand. It's not just full of jargon. And it's structured around 3 sections. So the introduction sets out the national and local policy context for a lot of what I've just talked you through. Section 2 talks about the housing context in Breckland, so it pulls out some of the key themes and observations that we're seeing in some of the data. And section 3 actually sets out the priorities, the key activities and the suite of actions that we intend to pursue in order to deliver the strategy. Thank you. Priority 1 is around preventing homelessness. So under this section we're talking about making partnership developments a cornerstone of our approach to homelessness. We do work relatively well as agencies across Norfolk and across Breckland, but from the conversations we've had with partners, there is still scope for us to work a great deal closer to ensure that opportunities to prevent homelessness are not missed. We talk about making debt and budgeting advice a cornerstone of our strategic approach to homelessness, looking at what's coming over the hill in terms of welfare reform. And we also look at making access to employment and skills a key strand of our approach to homelessness as well. Because when people's incomes are going to be reduced by measures such as the benefit cap, in some circumstances their only realistic opportunity to retain their accommodation is to find employment. We're going to have to play a role in assisting people to do that. We're trying to draw out a focus around supporting those with complex and multiple needs. So a lot of our evidence suggests that we sometimes see people come back into the system who are homeless several times before their situation is resolved. And obviously we don't want to see that happen. We want to address people's complex needs as soon as possible so they don't experience repeat homelessness. And we also want to look at how we can support households and partners in the preparation for the introduction of universal credit as well. In terms of priority 2, this is improving health outcomes by improving housing. So in here, the document explores a proposal to develop a holistic handy person service to support vulnerable people to remain in their own home, and that's something we're also in a position to talk you through later on. We talk about our approach to fuel poverty, and we need to really understand the areas where fuel poverty is the greatest issue, and work with our health colleagues to help find ways to alleviate those issues in terms of fuel poverty. It sets out our commitment to meeting the housing needs of those with dementia in terms of some specific actions, but a great deal of what other parts of the strategy feeds into helping those with dementia as well. And it also sets out how we expect to engage with good relationships with good landlords to encourage the creation of a good quality private rental sector in Breckland, whilst at the same time ensuring that our approach to enforcement focuses on those landlords who let unfit, unsafe and unsuitable accommodation, because they're the landlords who need to be focused on making their own resources onto. The final priority is supporting housing growth. So the strategy sets out a strong case in favour of the housing growth plan within the local plan, and it links this to the emergent demand and need that's coming through as a result of household and population growth. The document sets the scene for the council directly investing in new housing. So I know at the last meeting of Scrutiny on September the 1st, you considered a paper which proposed to do exactly that. So this strategy feeds into what's happening there. It sets out a commitment for the council to support the government's ambitions around increasing access to home ownership. So the government's made available nearly £4 billion to help bring about the supply of starter homes, rent to buy housing and shared ownership housing. And we're saying we want to be proactive in bringing some of that investment into the district. But at the same time, also setting out a commitment to low-cost rented housing as well, because it plays a crucially important part. The bigger picture in terms of meeting housing need and is strategically important to us. It does set out a commitment to support initiatives that promote customer self-built housing. One of the things we've already done, we've established a register where someone who is interested in registering their interest in customer self-built housing, they can register with the local authority, and we set it up in time for April the 1st when that becomes a statutory duty for us to do that. And we're also setting out a series of actions in relation to meeting the needs of the ageing population as well. The document includes a commitment to look at how we can meet the needs of rural communities, including specifically how we can get a better understanding of the individual needs of the individual parishes, so we can plan better for the local needs of rural communities, and also a commitment to support small and medium-sized house builders as well. So the conversation I had with the Federation of Master Builders highlighted an issue where the PLCs of this world, Walker Simmons and Barrow Homes, they have a team of people assisting them with any changes to planning policy and government initiatives and the money that the government's announced for house building. A small builder will not have access to the same resources, so there's a role for the local authority in helping to facilitate access to that same support. So we want to do that to help small and medium-sized builders make a contribution to housing supply in Breckland. A commitment to looking at how we can return long-term empty properties back into use, and also some emerging texts in relation to how we can plan to meet the needs of the Gypsy and Traveller community. And that is emerging text, as we've recently commissioned a new Gypsy and Traveller needs assessment, which by the time we have a full document, we'll have the findings of that study, so we're in a much more firm position to know what we'll be saying and how we will meet the needs of the Gypsy and Traveller community. So in terms of the next steps, it's our ambition and post our discussion today to take this document out for a period of public consultation for a period of 28 days. And we're looking for that to be a genuine consultation process designed to engage partners in understanding and forming a single vision for our housing and homelessness agenda over the next 4 years. We'll be looking to consult with a range of partners, and also the public as well, and also the town and parish councils as well, to engage them in the debate around the housing agenda and homelessness agenda for the next 4 years. And then, as Councillor Bambridge said, we'll bring the final document back for consideration by Scrutiny in January, February next year. So that's all from me, and I welcome